Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Working in Hockey podcast. I'm your host, Nick Bowens, and today I'm pleased to be joined by Stephanie Pajot. So I would have said Pajot. She says it's Pajot. We'll get into that later. But Stephanie, I know that you're the Corporate Partnerships Activation Manager with the Detroit Red Wings or Illich Sports and Entertainment. Super excited to have you joining the show here today. How's your week been so far?
I'm excited to be here, Nick. My week has been great. It's been a little slow. The Red Wings are on the road right now. I'm doing a little bit of a West Coast. Uh, Playing is a hard word to say if you watched any of the games, but been a good week getting ready to ramp up for the holiday games. The Red Wings always play at home the night before Thanksgiving, so really ramping up for a big week next week.
Awesome. No, definitely exciting times around the holidays. And like you mentioned, the pre-Thanksgiving game, there's always a big one, I know, in Michigan and with Red Wings fans. But I want to talk about you here, Stephanie. I want to talk about your role with the Red Wings. Tell me a little bit about it. What does a corporate partnerships activation manager do? And how'd you end up in this role?
I guess I'll start with how I ended up in it, just because that happened first. When I was at Michigan State, I was a student athlete there, and I was looking for ways to kind of get internships, but at a little different time of year. It's a little difficult with practices and things like that, kind of trying to find the time to fit it in. But I was starting to understand that I really did want to work in sports, though I was still an athlete at the time. I was a thrower, so I kind of knew my career was going to end after college, which was fine. But I really wanted to touch sports still, and I somehow, through professors and athletic directors, got connected with Fox Sports College Properties, who was essentially, I would say, like the leader field at the time for Michigan State. I believe now it's Playfly, and I just started as a partner services assistant, just helping on every single partnership, whether it was game day, setting things up, or going over the contracts and making sure we were doing everything. And I just really fell in love with it. It was just such a different side of sports that I had never seen or really understood. But I just connected with it. It's partnerships is really, it's marketing, but it's a little different because it's really touching people emotionally. And I think that was really just a really special way to be a part of sports. Just an important way of being in it as well. And so then fast forward to being a corporate partnership activation manager for the Detroit Red Wings, being a Michigan girl, was very excited about that. That was really cool that happened. I got that role after COVID, right when sports were just starting to come back. I think when I first started, that first month I was there, we still weren't having games with fans at it. And then we did a month in. So that was really cool. Just seeing how we reacted or kind of handled things after COVID. But being a partnership manager is really just being the relationship, being the face, being the person that the partner can trust. When my partners think Red Wings, they think Steph Pajot, and then so they're calling me when anything goes wrong or when anything goes great. And so I think that's just really cool of being kind of the face of the Red Wings for certain partners. And I think that's kind of the main overview of what I do. Obviously, there's a lot more nitty gritty, but that's kind of just an overview of it.
No, that's a perfect way to put it. I've never heard it framed that way. Is you're the face of the team to that person, and I think that's so true. And it's a very popular role. It's a very common role. Every team has these, but not everybody knows kind of the day to day. I think people think or attribute it to kind of just course sales a lot of times, dialing for dollars, cold call, trying to get people to come to the game. I don't believe that to be your day to day there as much. So talk to me about the day to day. I assume nothing is the same day after day. I assume no relationship is the same with different partners. But what does a day look like in the life of Steph?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you're right. And not every day is the same. That's just the truth. That's just working in sports. I think that's kind of more just the general answer. But really what it is fielding questions from partners, like working internally as well. So it's internal and external conversations just all day, every day, from a general perspective. So for example, today I had two partner meetings, just like weekly check-ins in the morning. From those check-ins, I obviously had a list of kind of action items that I needed to do, get answers for them. I had some answers for them, had questions for them, following up with an email just so they have it all from me. And then on top of that, then going to a bunch of internal connections saying, hey, just talk to this partner. This is what they're looking to do. What's the timeline on it? How do we make it happen? What do you need from me? What do you need from them? So just, I would say almost like the project management after that. So once you actually have the call with them, it's easy to have it, say what you can do, but then it's the action that comes after it. Um, Also, we have a game tomorrow. We haven't had a game at home in a couple weeks. So just kind of getting everything refreshed and ready to go. Maybe we updated an in-game feature and I need to make sure it's okay to run, make sure the partner has approved it, make sure it looks good on the video board. So working with game presentation, working with ops. I have a meeting with ops after this call. So really just a lot of day to day is working with a partner, but then also working internally and just keeping everything moving, so it doesn't get stagnant. I mean, it's pretty easy to accidentally miss one piece of creative that needs to be running in a game, and that's in the contract. You have to make sure it's happening. So just kind of making sure you have all of your ducks in a row when it comes to the partnership, game to game. I would say when we don't have a game necessarily, for 2 weeks we didn't have a game at home. It was a lot more just like catching up on things that got pushed back a little bit, like maybe whether it's proof of performance photos, for partners, just so they can see their assets running, just because they like to see it more than they're checking on you. They're just excited. They want to see their logo in front of everyone with the crowd. And so just a lot of, I would say just management of the contracts is the day to day. Or tomorrow it's a Friendsgiving with my department. So you never know what you're
Very
going to
cool.
get.
No, no 2 days are the same there. And yeah, I think that's, you touched on project management. You touched on, well, you didn't touch on, but you definitely touched on organization being kind of just a general soft skill of everything you're doing there, executing the
Yeah.
contracts, checking in with everybody, staying on top of them. So I'm going to pin organizational skills as the number one soft skill for your role. What other soft skills would you say go into a role like this when you're dealing with so many different stakeholders, both internal and external, like you mentioned?
Um, Communication, obviously, that's a good one. Time management, things like that, those are important. But one of the ones that I just find personally really important is emotional intelligence when it comes to the partners. You Earlier I said I'm the face. When they think of the Red Wings, they think of me. So they think of a person. And when I'm working with them, I might think of the large company, but I'm dealing with the person. And so I think it's really important to understand just different waves, whether their company is struggling with something internally, or even if they're struggling with something at home or just going through something. It's really important for us to trust and know each other. We don't have to be best friends, obviously, but just to know each other, know what's going on and understand that, and give a little bit of grace when needed. I can't get every question answered in 10 seconds. That's just not how the role works, internally or externally. And so just being a human and remembering that you're a human and they're a human when you're working, I think is really important, because at the end of the day, it's the relationship that kind of keeps them coming back. Yes, they love the Red Wings. It's Detroit. It's kind of hard to hate them. But making sure that that partner feels valued, feels like it's a partnership. It's not just a client. I think that distinction is really important. And then I would say too, just maybe not a specific soft skill, but taking the partnership and making it your own. I don't have the same personality as everyone I work with that does my same role. But we all do a very good job, but we all do it differently. And that's, I think, what's important. You kind of not necessarily are vulnerable with your partners, but you let them see who you are and who your personality is. And I'm a farm girl from up in the sticks in Michigan, and everybody knows that, and that's fine. But it connects us in a little bit of a way where they know that about me, and I know things about them, and it really makes us more connected. But also by showing who you are a little bit, it helps with that connection. It helps with that trust. And there's other people I work with who aren't the same as me, but they do a great job too, because they are showing who they are to the partner. And I think just giving them that little bit, it really helps go the extra mile.
Oh, that's a fabulous answer. There's so many soft skills and people skills involved with a role like yours there. And to flip back to, you touched on the Red Wings being out of town for a little bit there, now getting back to some games at home. I'm always curious and hope that people can shine a light on just the logistical of a role like yours. It's not a traditional 9 to 5 probably, but what does a game day look like for you versus, a Monday or a Tuesday when the team might be on the road? How much does that impact your deliverables, your schedule, etc.?
So it really just depends, which I know isn't the answer you're looking for. So I'll just use tomorrow as an example just because it's coming up. I personally have one thing other than the typical assets of creative running, things like that. I only have one asset of why I would have to be there. It's an experience for a partner. And so personally, I'm actually not even going to the game. One of my colleagues also has the same experience, and so he's just going to take my four and make sure that they're good and everything works. I'm setting it all up. I have talked to the partner. I've talked to them, made sure the guests who's coming feel comfortable, they're ready. I've talked to them on the phone, anything like that. Um, but it's one of those things where my boss is really great about saying, hey, if you don't have a function of being here, don't just be here to be here. You're going to get burnt out. You love hockey so much. The Red Wings are your favorite team. And then you work 20 games in a row, you're going to get a little burnt out. You're going to start to resent it a little bit. And it's really important when working in sports, I think, that you need to make sure you don't get burnt out. You need to always remember, like on your drive in, your walk in, whatever you're doing, just remember it's a little cool. Just like, oh, that's a little cool. Like, not everybody gets to do this. I know this is special. And so I'm actually taking tomorrow and I'm not going in. It just doesn't really make sense. It's a post game experience. So I would just be there to be there at that point. But also I would say, like, for other games, I do have to be there. It changes in, you send kind of emails off of your laptop, but you're on it, but you're not standing there staring at your laptop at 9 a.m. and then working the game until 11 p.m. That's a lot. They don't require us to do that, which is really nice, and I think helps with work-life balance. So I will work in the morning, depending on what time I have to be there. I do live a little far away, so it takes a few minutes to go in there. I usually take my lunch to drive down. And then I'll probably get there around 3 o'clock, start setting up, just so that I'm comfortable. Doors aren't open yet to fans. I know I have a list of things that I need to go get done, kind of check everything. For every game, we do have like a manager on duty, so we like check all the assets to make sure they're all set. So if I'm that person that day, I'll go through and do all the checks and make sure I talk to ops, see if they need anything from me. They never do, but I always ask. Marketing, same thing, whether they need help. So really just being around. And then if, say I had a tabling or a different asset going on, just connecting with the partner, making sure you're on your phone and very accessible to them. Just because coming to arena on a game day can be a little overwhelming if you're not used to it. So like if a partner's coming and they're going to be on site, you want to make sure you're there and available to them and just helping them in any way. We know the building well, and we know the security and all of that. So it helps to be able to have things run smoother.
Yeah, that's very cool to hear, and especially jealous at the fact that Little Caesars Arena might just be the best arena in the league. It's beautiful, beautiful facility.
I'm
So
biased. I agree.
no doubt, but jealous that you get to spend as many days there as you do. But like you said, I think that balance is super important, and having managers that understand and able to work with you on kind of the give and take of the hours and stuff there. Like you said, sometimes it's probably nice to kick your feet up on the couch and watch a Red Wings game from home as a
Yeah.
fan once in a while. But like you said, there's so much cool, access and insight that comes with working for a team like that it makes it all very worthwhile. I want to talk a little bit prior to that. You touched on Michigan State as well. I know that you went to Arizona State University, one of our partners here with the Master Sports Law and Business program. Talk to me about those experiences, two very well-known, very famous schools. Start with ASU. How was your experience over there with the MSLB program?
It was great. To be completely honest, cards on the table, I didn't want to go. When I graduated MSU, I was just done going to school. It took me 5 years. We won't talk about it. But it was good. I was loved it there, but I was done. I was ready to work. I love working. Um, I went through I did an internship the summer before I graduated Michigan State, and I did it in Las Vegas with UFC. It was really fun. One of my professors from Michigan State, while I was out there, sent me a message and said, "Hey, ASU is not far away. Is there any way you can get to Arizona State and just meet with the dean, just to see maybe it's something you want to do?" I was like, "Yeah, whatever. It's like a $20 bus ride." So I took it. I went down there, over there, whatever. I went to Arizona and I talked to him, and I fell in love with it. I got really excited. I was like, this program is so for me. I was like, but I just don't want to go to school. Like, I'm done. I've done it. I'm good. I don't need a master's degree. I don't want to do it. Um, and so I came home. I talked to my mom and I said, these three things have to happen for me to go. It has to be perfect. These are the only way I'm going to do it. Well, those three things happened. I get there and I go to my mom, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do it. She was like, "Are you joking?" She said, if these three things happened, you would absolutely do it. Why wouldn't you do it?" And I just said, I just, at the West Coast, like, it's so different from the Midwest. I was like, I'm worried I'm not going to fit in. That was my biggest thing. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to fit in. And that was scary to me as a, I don't know, 20-year-old, 21-year-old. And she was like, "You never fit in. Just go." And it was hilarious. It was exactly what I needed to hear. I was like, yeah, you're right. I know that. So I went out there, and I loved it. It was so great. I was just the maid of honor in one of my friends that I met in the program's wedding this year. So people were amazing. I still talk to a few just kind of like randomly, as you do. But I loved the people. I really loved it because I already knew at this time I wanted to go into partnerships. All of my roles prior to this had been partnerships. And so I was really excited when there was a whole partnerships class, and then there was just all these other parts that kind of filled the gaps of the things I hadn't learned yet, like the event planning class and things like that, where I knew it would be a portion of my role in corporate partnerships, but I had never actually done it. So just getting to learn in that and just a little bit of the law aspect was just something I didn't know anything about. And so that was really cool. And I think just kind of rounded out what what I needed in my experience. And then also when I was at UFC, I did talk to my VP of corporate partnerships at the time. And I was asking everybody, should I do this? Should I do this? Should I do this master's program? Does it make sense? And he just said, he was like, "Well, is it going to hurt you in a way to do it? Like, why wouldn't you do it?" And that was, again, another little push that I needed yeah, you're right. It's not going to hurt me to have it. It's like, what's the worst case scenario? I learn a little something. I mean, nothing can go wrong there. And then I was there during COVID a little bit, unfortunately. So classes did go online. But then fortunately enough, I was also a graduate assistant for the athletic department while I was at Arizona State. Which was cool as well, just to kind of dig more into like the career development side with athletes is what I was doing there. They also let me move back to Michigan for my last semester. And that was really important to me because I had kind of, as I had said, I kind of knew I wasn't sold on being over there like long term. So it was cool to be able to move home while everything was a little still shut down. But then kind of finish out my program. And then fast forward, I think like 5 months after, I was working with the Red Wings. So it was really cool, kind of perfect storm of ASU helping me get in there.
Yeah, well, shout out to your mom for the brutal honesty. Sometimes
Yeah.
that is all it takes. But
Yeah.
that's super interesting to hear. And again, one of our great partners there with ASU. So fabulous program. And one of the things that I've heard the most is just the benefit of not only having great alumni that have gone through the program there, but also just the people involved and people who
Yeah.
have actually worked in the sports industry and can give you their hands-on experiences and pass down learnings and knowledge. Speak to that sort of experience of just learning from people who have been there and done it, and how that helps you today.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, some of it was I heard how they did it, and then I just realized that's not how I wanted to do it. It was just nice to hear that they had done it before. I feel like a lot of times you get well, you got to work in ticket sales first, and I was like, I don't want to. Like, I just don't want to do it. It's not how I want. I don't want that to be my story. And being there, you heard the 20 different stories of how they made it, And it didn't have to be, you have to work in ticket sales first, and so just kind of hearing it, oh, well, this is the route I want, or I went to get there, and I would hear him like, oh, I'm not, don't really have an interest in that. So it's like, oh, but it opened my eyes to this position that I didn't know even existed. I mean, you kind of mentioned it earlier. Corporate partnerships, they're everywhere. It's not even just in sport. I mean, it's in every large company, like everywhere, which is great. And I wouldn't have known about it unless I would have gotten put into that role at Michigan State. Even I got to Arizona State, stood up on the first day, said what I wanted to do, and everybody looked like, half the class looked at me like they'd never heard of corporate partnerships before, which is it's just the case. Not everybody knows about it. And so it was really cool also, like while I was there, to watch the other students in the classes start to fall in love with it too. And they're like, oh, then we could talk about it, because I was so excited about it. And then I had professors that worked in it. And then one of the professors, Raviol, he helped me, had me be an intern and work for him during COVID while he was like selling naming rights deals and things like that. And just that kind of connection you just don't get that everywhere. That was so valuable to me that Rob was able to be like, yep, you're looking for it. And I know everything's closed down, but I'm doing this. Come on with me. And that was just a professor I had, and now a friend and mentor, which is, it's just unmatched. It really is. I think it's important to have a strong network like that. And then even now, having the network of everyone working in whatever industry they're working in. I still went to school with them. We still learned very similar things. If I see something like one of these jobs came up a few years ago, I wasn't even thinking about someone I went to school with at ASU. She called me and was like, hey, I just applied for this. And now we've been colleagues for 2 years, and which was really cool. It just doesn't always happen. And I feel like it says a lot to the professors as well of like who they're picking, because not everybody gets in either. And so I think that whole leadership board is really doing a really good job over there.
No, that's awesome to hear, and very valuable experience overall. It sounds like, and to a degree, I hope that I can sort of play back your answer on,
Yeah.
showcasing all the different roles and opening people's eyes to different ways to do things and different opportunities. That's the goal of the Working in Hockey podcast. At the end of the day, showcase all these different roles and career paths, and there isn't just one way to crack into the sports industry. There isn't just one way to work in hockey, and it sounds like that was a perfect answer that I'm going to steal from you there for that. You touched on Michigan State before that as well. We won't touch on the 5 years, but you were a student athlete there. You're on the track and field team. Talk to me about what you have been able to take in your career from playing sports to working in sports. What lessons or skills have you noticed being transferable there?
You know, the biggest one, so track specifically, you're kind of an individual athlete, but then also you obviously have the team, but you can succeed and your team doesn't, or your team can succeed and you can't. And so I think it was the perfect way for me to understand how corporate life was going to be, because it's so important when you're throwing that. I want to do good. It means so much to me that I'm going to do well. And I got a little lost in that for a little bit, where I would struggle and I just wasn't performing the way I want to perform, wasn't performing the way I was in practice. And then I would I'd get to the end and I would just be so disappointed that I would like miss that we were doing super well as a team. And so as I got a little bit older and just started to be a little more retrospective on it, yes, I always wanted to do well, but then I knew how to just like shut it off and worry about the team. I was like, it's time for the team. Is the team going to win? Who do I need to cheer on? Who needs me to go help them? Like, in order to get this, so we can just win as a team. It's so important to win as a team. And I just think that's the perfect like mindset to have when you're going into a corporate area. I mean, everyone I work with, yeah, like part of my job is sales. We do sell. I have to upsell. I have to keep these partners. They don't just come back because they like it. Like sometimes it needs to meet their KPIs. It needs to make sense for their budget, and I have to be the one to prove it to them and kind of go from there. And so we all are working. We all want the best partnerships. We all want to do the best activations, things like that. But at the end of the day, it's so that it all works out for us. And it's all the whole team wins. And I mean, we hit revenue goals and things like that. And so I think Michigan State really taught me that. I wasn't a national champion by any means, but I knew how to be a teammate in the end and learned how to be a teammate in the end. And I think that is really important for just working really anywhere. But when you see all the moving parts of a team. When you think a sports team, you don't necessarily think of all the things that are happening on the back end, and it's a lot more than what you first comes to mind. And you're not just worried about if the team's doing well, but if the fans are happy. That's a really big part of what I'm doing every day. And so Michigan State really taught me that, and I'm really grateful.
Yeah, that's very well said and excellent insight there. Hoping you can continue it for the advice portion here, Steph. I always wrap things up by asking what sort of career advice would you have for somebody looking to break into sports, looking to break into hockey, maybe somebody who went for their master's like you did, maybe somebody who knows what they want to do like you did. How would you suggest they go about breaking into the hockey world?
Yeah, I would say that's a hard question. I'm not going to lie, that's probably the hardest one you've asked all day. One thing that I did, and this might just be specific to the time it was that when COVID was going on, to your point earlier, sports weren't. Sports were at a stop, and we were all looking to break in, but there wasn't a market for us, So we just said we have this degree, and now what? Like, sports aren't happening. Like, kind of what's our next step? And so what I did is I went through, and I wanted to work in corporate partnerships. I knew corporate partnerships was it. I went through and figured out a list of job functions and job responsibilities and just like skills that you needed to do that role. And I wrote them down, and then I looked, just searched, scoured to find other roles that matched that. Like, what are other jobs I can do that aren't in sports that will build this for me? Because right now, sports aren't it. And so I actually took the 5 months it took me after graduation to get to the Red Wings. I worked for Granger Industrial Supply. That's not sports. Nothing to do with sports at all. I went in, and it was the same exact, I would say, job function that was going on. It was relationship building. It was upselling. It was like client relationships. And that's exactly what the role I was going to do was going to be, with the nuances of sports, obviously, and with it being kind of more of a luxury spend rather than industrial equipment. And so I went through and just figured out what that function was and found a way to get the experience that I knew that they were looking for a role in corporate partnerships for a sports team. That might be a little bit more specific to during COVID, but I do think that it's relevant even today when, like you're saying, there's only so many roles at each team. So just start to think out of the box a little bit. Even the idea of, okay, who are the partners of the Red Wings? Go work for one of the partners and then work on their hockey accounts. That's kind of a way in. Typically, I will say, I see a lot more people going out that way after working on the team side for a minute. Then they'll move over to maybe the agency or maybe over to the company side. So just a little bit of flexibility there. But I know if you're looking to be strategic and just try new things, you like, I've put my resume out there, I've done this, I've already done this, whatever. I would say maybe looking into like partners and working your way in that way. But then also just the connections. And I know it's answer that everybody says, but just have the calls, have the conversations. Working specifically in hockey, I would say know what's going on in the industry. That's going to be really important. Part of my role is understanding what's happening in other markets so that I know what to do for our market. And I think going into a conversation and knowing that is important. But the last one I will say is don't be too much of a fan in the interview. That's it's just not a good look. When I interviewed for the Red Wings, I frankly didn't care if it was the Red Wings or the Tigers. I was so desperate to be in sports. Thankfully, my boss put me in with the Red Wings because I just fit really well with the culture and everything. But I wasn't too much of a fan. I accidentally lied in my interview and said I had been a fan forever because I was born in '96. And so I was used to all of these Stanley Cup Christmas bulbs and sweaters and all of that. And my parents said those were just hand-me-downs and that we weren't a fan as a family. So honestly, I kind of grew into being a Red Wings fan, which I love. And now everything I own is Red Wings, even in this black sweatshirt, So, but I really think it is important to make sure Show that you're a fan, absolutely, but leave the diehard fandom at home a little bit when it comes to the interview. I think it's important for them to know you're here to do the job, do the role, and understand how important what your role is, without being, I guess, a little rose-colored glasses towards the team. I know that's not the fun answer, but I do think it's really important. So when you're in those, yes, show that you care, show that you're into it, um, but maybe just show like the other part of what makes you the perfect candidate for a hockey job.
I think that's a fabulous answer. Lots of different tips and tricks within that as well. I think the fan point's a great call out there. It's good to show your knowledge of the sport and of the team and of the business overall, but don't walk in there saying so and so costs us too much against the cap. That's not going to lead you in a good spot.
Yeah.
And the transferable skills part you mentioned there, that's music to my ears. I think a lot of times people that are reaching out to working in hockey or looking to get involved are looking to switch in from other industries, and they're worried that that's going to be difficult. And I think that's easier. Experience is experience. At bats are at bats. Get your reps up, like you said, in a different industry, but notice the transferable skills. Kind of prove yourself in a different lane, showcase where you can bring value and break into the sports world that way is a great way to do it. That sounds like how you did it. It sounds like how a lot of people do it. So, Steph, this has been awesome. I really appreciate the time here. Fabulous advice. Great story. Again, shout out to your mom for convincing you to go to ASU's MSLB program there. Where can the people reach out to you if they have any questions about your role, your path, or looking to get into the hockey world?
Um, Best place to find me is on LinkedIn. Reach out. It might take me a day to respond. As Nick knows, I'm not great at responding. I respond really well for work and not so well any other time, but don't take offense to it. But I think LinkedIn, Stephanie Pajot, I'm on there. So reach out, and I'd love to talk to everybody.
Awesome. Well, there you have it, guys. This has been another episode of the Working in Hockey podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and we'll see you next